Good morning. Namaskar. How are you, students? Now, this paper for UG and PG classes, the public administration and the chapter delegated or subordinate legislation. First of all, I want to tell you the meaning of this delegated legislation. What do we mean by delegated legislation? Lawmaking is a function of the legislature, but legislature generally delegate many legislative powers to the administrative authorities. This development is known as a delegated or subordinate legislation. The Committee on Ministers' Powers defined it as the exercise of minor legislative power by subordinate authorities and bodies in pursuance to statutory authority given by Parliament itself. Delegated legislation may mean either exercised by a subordinate authority, such as a minister of the legislative power delegated to him by the Parliament, or by the subsidiary laws themselves made, for example, by such a subordinate authority. Legislature passes an act and entrusts or delegates the authority of rule making under the act to the minister concerned. It is known as delegated legislation because Parliament itself has conferred or delegated some legislative powers to the authorities which are subordinates or responsible to the legislature. Now, it is very much pertinent to express here that what is the need of the delegated legislation? Why delegated legislation is an effective tool to govern and rule the nation. Due to important social, political, and economic changes, the necessity for an extensive delegation of legislature has arisen. The main reasons for the growth of delegated legislation is due to the impact of science and technology. The functions of the state are fast expanding. Parliament finds itself increasingly engaged in delegation, which has for its conscious aim the regulation of day-to-day affairs of the community. And now intervenes in matters formerly, though, to the entirely outside its scope due to the enormous increase in the functions of the state. Delegated legislation has become a necessity. Delegated legislation has become a necessity in the modern technological age. Parliament is not properly equipped to deal in detail with many of the technical matters and in day-to-day matters which are subject of subordinate legislation and from which, for the most part, political considerations are absent. Parliament is always in short of time, so the only course of open to it is to delegate some of its authority to other agencies. Law require alterations with the change in times. Parliament cannot make rapid changes because it does not meet constitutionally, so the authority to make changes in the details of the law is delegated to the departments concerned. Delegated legislation saves the time of Parliament. These advantages are very much relevant even today and for future also, because legislation always saves the time of the parliament. Suppose the parliament is not in session and the executive and legislature is not working more. At that time, if any emergency arises, there is the provisions of in the Constitution of India to that delegate the legislative power should be delegated to the subordinate agencies to tackle with the problems at the spur of moment and further make the administration rather easier to act. As far as the delegated legislation is concerned, due to the growing functions of the state, the adoption of the system of confining the attention of Parliament to material provisions only and leaving details to the settled departmentally is probably the only way in which parliamentary government can, as respects the legislative functions, be satisfactorily carried out. Delegated legislation is directly related to acts of parliament, related to the child, to parent, to growing child called upon to relieve the parent of the strain of overwork and capable of attending to minor matters while the parent manages the main businesses. Parliaments and get more time for the consideration of more important questions involved in legislation without caring for the minor details. The truth is, said the report of the Committee on Ministers' Powers, that if Parliament were not willing to delegate law-making powers, Parliament would be unable to pass the kind and quantity of legislation which modern public opinion requires. Now, in this process, I have told you the meaning, the necessity for subordinate legislation, how it is important for ruling the state and to control the administration. Kindly develop your answer through this process, meaning these points in mind for preparing the answers according to our syllabus. This is important for both undergraduate and postgraduate students of political science who have opted these papers. Thank you very much. Stay at home, be safe, don't stir out of home, follow social distancing. Thank you. Dhanyavad.